Emotes. Go with the in the groove. Okay, now it's time to start asking questions. Feel free to ask questions about Lucio, about Dorado, about cheese, I guess. If people are on the topic, I'm more than happy to talk about cheese and stuff like that. Anything you want, really. But mostly Lucio. Let's see. I have been watching APAC and Lucio seems to no longer be a must pick. Your thoughts? Again, it's just to do with like how Mercy is so dominant on this patch. People feel that basically you have to run the Mercy, and then there's Zenyatta helps you confirm kills and get picks, so the Lucio just feels less useful. And like this patch is also less about it's less about hard committing and less about sort of aggro and very, very decisive play, and more about ultimates being used intelligently, economy, that kind of thing, because Mercy nullifies so much value out of picks that it's sort of shifted how the game is played. Whether that will stay the same, I don't know. Like APAC is small. I've heard good things about the Chinese teams. I've heard good things about the Pacific region teams when they go and face other teams from other regions and scrims and such, but in general, it's still kind of a looked down upon region, and I'd be curious to see how they fare elsewhere. You never gave us your definition of cheese. I think I did yesterday when I was talking about Bastion. So cheese to me is very simple. Cheese, like my definition of cheese comes from my StarCrafty background, which is this. Cheese, like a cheese strategy is a strategy that works dependent on the enemy not knowing you're going to run it. Which sounds weird in Overwatch because you never know what strategy the enemy team is going to run. But the reason why I use that definition of cheese is, for example, a 6 pool would be very easy to beat if you had complete vision of the map and you could see it coming. Very, very classic StarCraft cheese, the Zergling Rush. It's very easy to beat if you know that the enemy's going to do it. Same with like a proxy gateway or a proxy barracks. When you know it's happening, you can usually beat it. And so you use various scouting techniques to make sure that you're scouting for the cheeses. Sometimes you might cut those scouting techniques and go a little bit greedier, but you're always taking a risk when you're doing that. It's not like an honest or safe way to play. When playing Overwatch cheese to me is a strategy that, again, is sort of, it's designed to work once when you come out of spawn, and then it won't continue working after that. So stuff like Torbjorn Symmetra, stuff like the Bastion Orisa strats, they kind of stop working once they've been broken once. They're very dependent on that initial, oh shit, they're doing that. Okay, we have to change how we're playing. We can't just play like a normal game of Overwatch. We have to shift how we're playing to beat that strategy. So Torbjorn Symmetra is sort of a good example of that. When you realize, oh, they're running Torb Symmetra, well, we have to change how we play. We have to sort of dismantle their defense as best we can and then go from there. Same with Bastion Orisa strats or Bastion Reinhardt on payload, Killdozer strategies basically. It's like, okay, well, they're running this strat, well, we have to change how we play, and we just have to break this thing once, and then once it's broken once, it's usually pretty easy to keep it broken. So that's usually how I define cheese. It isn't wrong to use cheese. This is the thing I really want to hammer home. Using cheese is not wrong. Cheese is an incredibly good tool for game balance in terms of keeping players honest and keeping players on their toes about stuff. Like, there will be certain strategies that if you try and run them into a cheese comp, they just completely fall apart. They will completely stop working. So if you're taking a gamble on trying to run this strategy and they just run cheese into it, it works. And it is a strategy like any other. It's just identified as being a bit cheesy because it's very one note and one trick. And it's like, sometimes, most of the time, it'll probably fail spectacularly, but when it works, it's frustrating as hell and it works super nicely. People also, like other people, usually define cheese as well as being something that's relatively easy to execute. And it's like, it's harder to counter than what it is to execute. It's the Hanzo of strategies, right? It's the McCree and free-for-all of strategies. It's very easy to execute and do okay with. But you're usually running these, but like that doesn't really work for me. Like you can tell when a team's very good at working with what it's got and when it's very bad at it. So I don't think that kind of makes sense. Can you explain how to use Amp It Up? Well, I feel like it's just a more heals once every 12 seconds ability, and I'm uncomfortable not maximizing my healing output. So what's kind of cool is if you watch pro level Lucios, they're usually very careful when they use Amp It Up. Amp It Up is a pretty big step up in your healing output. If I bring up the Overwatch wiki, I don't know this off the top of my head. Lucio. I don't know the exact numbers. Crossfade, amp it up. So according to this, 46.8 hit points per second and 70% movement speed, going up from... Does it just have the passive auras? 16, so pretty much like 3 times more healing. Amp it up is on a long cooldown, so the important things with amp it up, the very important things with amp it up, is that it's on a long cooldown. 12 seconds is quite a long time. It dramatically increases your healing output, and your base healing output is not hugely relevant in a fight. Your base healing isn't great. So what you want to make sure you're not doing is, there's like a really bad habit which you can fall into if you're new to Lucio, which is you just use amp it up pretty much every time it's off cooldown. You see someone's even slightly hurt and you just hit amp it up. Right? This is a really bad habit that needs breaking. Because if you do that, then when you need amp it up, when you really need that healing, you don't have it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go onto Lucio, right? I'm going to roll out, and we're going to look at these healing bots here. Okay, they're both pretty low, so we're going to heal them up. And you can see, like, the healing output is actually pretty strong. And then it's not strong at all. So you need this healing when these guys are taking damage. You really need that healing taking damage. And to me, there's a really easy illustration of it, which is this. Okay, with Lucio, it's a little bit complicated because you're always healing a little bit and then you're healing a lot. But let's take Anna. Anna has some very, very clear things. You have your normal healing, and then you have like the big oh fuck button, right, which is your grenade, where you can put a ton of healing down very quickly and you can increase the healing done. If someone has taken a like a tiny sliver of damage, what are you going to do? You're not going to hit them with a grenade. You're not going to do that. No, you're just going to use your regular healing. You're just going to top them up in a normal way. You kind of got to get into the same mindset with Lucio, which is don't use your amp it up frivolously. Try and have a reason for it every single time you're actually putting that to use, because if you don't, the problem you're going to face is that the teamfight's going to begin and you're not actually contributing any healing at all. You're not actually putting any real healing out because you don't have amp it up and it's on such a long cooldown that not having it just means you're not going to have it for that fight, which means that if their team has it, for example, their team suddenly has like 30 heal per second more than your team, 32 heal per second more than your team. That's a big difference across the entire team. That's huge. That's almost a Valkyrie. So it's like, get out of the habit of just using it whenever. You can use it to like pick people up if they're low. So if like a Reinhardt's backing off, you go and you pick him up and you just use amp it up just to very quickly get him healed up. But my advice then is just give him a bit of health with the amp it up, crossfade halfway through, and then speed boost, like use the speed to pull him back and to get to safety where he can then just be healed up by other healers, and you can just use your passive healing to regenerate him. Be very, very careful with wasting amp it ups. It's the hallmark of sort of a bad Lucio, is the ones that don't amp it up properly, or will just use it every cooldown, because it is very, very important to manage that. And it's like, it's your one button to manage, and this is, to me, like, the unfortunate legacy of people like Stanky. Stanky was a fucking great Lucio. He got huge amounts of results, could do huge amounts of damage, could boot people like crazy, and probably knew how to use the support tools extremely well. But there's a lot of people that think, well, if I want to play like Stanky, I'm just going to climb on walls all day, and I'm not really going to give a fuck about my amp it up button. I'm just going to use that to speed boost around as much as possible. I'm not going to use it to reposition my team or heal my team in intelligent ways. To me, the core of Lucio is getting that support right. After you've done that, then you can learn to bounce around on walls and try and knock people off cliffs in really cool ways and maximize your damage output. But if you aren't supporting your team in the core central way, you're fucking up. And so just focus on getting those amps correct, focus on positioning yourself to where you're healing as many people as possible and get all that right. Make sure that you are speeding your team in when you're engaging, then swapping to heal when necessary. Make sure that you are moving people around in intelligent ways and getting that right before you think, oh man, now I'm going to go on this really cool little pathway that I'm going to jump around on all the walls. Oh my god, look at me, I'm amazing. I'm climbing all these walls. Oh my god, I'm so good. Oh baby, look at me go. Oh yeah, I've got the cool flank and I'm going to boop them off, and all your team is dead. Because you've spent so long pissing around looking for this cool boop, but no one really gives a shit. And your team just tried to walk into their team and ended up dying because they weren't quick enough. It's a big deal. So yeah, get that right is my central advice. Once you want Taxi a member, even if they shit, I'm a bit rusty on Lucio. Most of my playstyle is still rooted in the old Lucio. You could tell. Okay, so taxiing on Lucio is less important than it used to be. It used to be more important because Lucio's amped up was less powerful than it is now. So like your impact in a team fight was actually a lot smaller. Now your amped up is actually a pretty big powerhouse. Like when Lucio got changed to have its wall ride mechanics changed and had the amps changed, it's very important that you are in the fight when a fight is happening. And I would say that you are okay taxiing stuff like Reinhardt, taxiing Mercies and Zens. But if your team is like forced into a corner, it is okay for you to be there. It is okay for you to just go, no, I need to be at this fight. I need to be there now and just provide that amp it up and try and get there. Another thing I'll actually comment on, because it's just reminded me as well, is using it amp it up out of spawns. I know a lot of people like just use it straight away out of the spawn. It varies from map to map, and you've got to be very careful with some of them. The biggest one to me is King's Row. Do not amp it up out of spawn in King's Row. And I'll even go as far as to load into the game. I'll load into King's Row to demonstrate why, because this is actually ridiculously important to get right. Settings, maps, non, King's Row. Move me to attack. The reason why this is so important is because you don't want to have a dead period. What do I mean by a dead period? I mean a period where you're not doing anything, where your team is just sort of standing around and waiting. So if you use amp it up when you're leaving the spawn, think about where you're aiming to go from spawn on King's Row. Well, if you use amp it up and go from spawn, you'll usually get to about here, and then your team will stop. And then you'll stand around for a while, usually taking a shitload of spam while you're just standing here waiting. You gotta wait 12 seconds. Okay. 1, go. And then you're gonna push in and you're gonna go round and you're gonna go onto the point, or you're gonna go up there or whatever. But you have this weird sort of dead period here that you actually didn't need to have. Whereas if you lose spawn and you just hold on to the boost and you just go, okay guys, I'm gonna boost when we get to the choke, and you just run out, and then you see your tanks in position and at the choke, and then you boost now, then you're going straight in, and it's way faster. And it tilts me no end. It's like one of the most frustrating things in the world to have a Lucio on your team and have him waste his speed boost because he just uses it coming out of spawn willy-nilly. It's so pointless, because it doesn't actually get you anywhere faster. Gaining this ground with a tank is relatively easy. Like, you don't need to do anything here. It's a bit different on other maps like Hollywood, for example. The distance from spawn to the first choke is pretty long, so you can do it on Hollywood. It's not as big of a deal. Same with Dorado as well. Like, where getting to where you're contesting is pretty much instantaneous, so whatever, it doesn't actually make a difference. King's Row to me is like the biggest bugbear for this though. Other good examples, Temple of Anubis, it's a very good one. So again, just don't use it when you're leaving spawn door. Instead, wait till you get to the choke, because you want it for when you're pushing through that choke point. You don't want to stay standing at that choke point for too long, and just waiting for your amp to come off is hell. So yeah. Oh, bring this over. My biggest issue with Lucio is one he shares with Doomfist, until less extent with Hanzo and Genji. I absolutely hate his voice. How can you hate his voice? Lucio's got such a... like, he's not harsh on the ears. Doomfist has a really nice voice as well. Doomfist. Maybe you just don't like strong accents? I don't know. Like, what I would call like ethnic accents, I guess. Although Lucio's accent is very American, so... What sort of new support would you like to see introduced? I would love something Splatoon-y. What the fuck do I mean by Splatoon-y? I mean that they're a small child with a squid on their head. No, what I mean is that they can paint the ground. Like they will, like, for example, they would have a speed boost of their own where they just like they can place a line of something across the floor, and then you move through it and you get a speed boost for like 2 seconds or something, or 3 seconds or whatever. Something like that would be really cool. I wouldn't like it where it's slowed necessarily, but I would like it where it's like they could throw a grenade and it just did damage over time if you're standing in the grenade, and the longer you stay in it, the higher the damage output overall, so it goes on a curve. I think that would be really fun. Just something like that. Like, there's no zone denial sort of stuff in Overwatch at the moment, and they could definitely do something like that, and you could definitely do a support sort of themed around that. That would be fun. On Dorado and other high verticality maps, how much should you swap off a grounded hero immediately when moving to the vertical space? It depends how hard you're getting shit on. If you are getting like, let me put it this way: if you're just like running out of spawn, and let's pretend Mondata is the enemy, okay, and the enemy is actually just Mondata's head. Mondata's head has laser beams coming out of it, and I run out, and it's like I want to go and fight Mondata's head, but oh no, shit, I can't because I'm firing upwards, and Mondata's head is perfectly safe, and I can't do shit about it. That's a problem, right? And if I'm just dying over and over again, well, the issue is very clearly they can fight us, but we can't fight them. That's when you should swap, right? If you are coming off a high momentum push and you have ultimate charge, which often happens on Dorado, like you smash their first defense and you're just rolling forward, you can stay on it for a little while. But then if they're just like occupying high ground and are playing very stodgy on high ground, you can just swap. You also have the option, though, of playing very close to the payload, trying to get underneath them, and then just waiting for them to drop down. And just playing in positions where you're saying, please come fight us. Like, you have to contest this payload at some point. Come fight us. Bring it on. And go from there. Like, that's generally also how you can defeat high ground. Important places where you want to consider swapping: Hollywood second point, Dorado second point. Both very, very good for that. Other than that, defense on Horizon second point, Numbani first point as well. This is also especially important for stuff like tanks. If you're playing a tank like a Reinhardt or something, or if you're playing like on defense on Horizon second point and you're playing Reinhardt, you're gonna have a really miserable time. Reinhardt's second point Horizon on defense is awful. Like, it feels horrible because if you stand on high ground, then you just sort of get knocked off, or you just get bullied, and you try and run away to hide somewhere, and then you're on low ground, and they just shoot you, and you can't do anything. It feels terrible. So that's where like Winston will start to thrive, for example. Same thing with Numbani first point, by the way. So yeah. Let's see. When running straight into a choke, how hard as Lucio do you feel you need to lead the charge mentally? Since if you physically lead it, well, I just don't know anymore. Yeah, don't actually physically lead the charge, but basically stand behind your tank. So let's say we're pushing through this choke point, and my tank is here. Is this record? Like, I want to stand about here. Like, I literally want to be pretty much inside him, because as he's moving forward and I speed boost, it does signal to the team. It gives and like make sure that as you're going forward, don't move in front of the tank, but just like keep pushing forward and just keep signaling that you want to go forward. Like, be very careful about like making any big movements back, because that signals to the team that you're uncertain. You want to give very clear body language. This is a theory of mine, and like one of the key aspects of my playstyle, which is I want to signal to other players very clearly what I'm doing just by how I'm doing it. So when I'm pushing in, I will very clearly like push, 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 push. Whereas I'll see some people, they'll start to push, and it's like they'll start pushing, and then they'll get a bit nervous, and they'll hide here, then push a little, and then get nervous again. And it's just like, no, just push, just push, just push. Because the worst thing you can ever do is just stay in like this area here, like, you know, between here and here. Do not stay in this area. You want to minimize the amount of time you're in this area. Once you're through here, then it's fine. You got cover here, cover over here, you got cover here, cover here. Oh my god, it's luxury for cover. You have so much cover. But when you're stood in here, this is get diddled on central. You know, this is bad. This place is horrible. There's nowhere to move. There's nowhere to juke. There's nowhere to dodge. You're screwed. You're going to die. So get through this as fast as possible. Just don't run in front of the tank, because you're going to die, and that's bad. And then people will back up. In Civil, most teams don't change versus cheese, so it works almost all the time. Yeah. When people start doing it, then they'll advance to gold, so it's just a learning experience. So, would you consider pharmacy cheese? Because if you don't expect it and run super greedy projectile spam comps, you'll probably get annihilated. Partially, yeah. It's relatively there's an aspect of cheese to it. You'll generally see this on control maps. Oasis usually, like there's some maps where people will run pharmacy and some teams won't, and so it's sort of guessing, well, are they running pharmacy? How much do we counter the pharmacy? Do we run dive into their pharmacy? How do we play around the pharmacy? And then you'll see them change and adapt their playstyles as they start fighting against the pharmacy. There is an element of cheese to it, but it's not like hugely cheesy. I would say that that's more of a standard strat, because you don't dramatically change your playstyle usually. You don't sort of warp your entire team comp around the pharmacy usually. At least not at the highest levels. Like if you're running dive into pharmacy, you usually just dive what's on the ground, try and bait the Mercy towards the low ground, and then kill her then, and develop from there. General question: when focusing a target, bringing them low and then the healer jumps to them, what's your thought process on how to change and stay on target? It's a difficult one. It depends on the healer, it depends on the circumstances, it depends on whoever else is focusing. To me, the core fundamental question is this, in my experience, can I kill this person in time? What would changing target actually accomplish? So, if, for example, you are fighting someone and a Lucio runs over and starts healing them, changing to the Lucio is probably not actually going to work that well, because the Lucio is also healing himself. Sure, it's not as much as he's healing the other person, but he's still healing himself. And so, like, he's also squirrely, he's agile, he's difficult to kill, so you're going to have a hard time probably getting the kill. So that way, you're just better at putting damage into the target you were killing already, and negating the effect of the healing. That said, if it's a tank that I'm fighting, and a heal grenade lands on him and pumps healing into him, that's going to out-heal most of the damage I'm doing. Like, unless the dive is really focused on that target, and I can probably keep that target alive. So I'm going to swap, or I'm going to do something else, I'm going to reassess. It's an experience thing, and it's sort of knowing, I do this much damage, or I'm used to doing this much damage, so if I land my shots, this person is going to still die. Reaper's a good example. Reaper, very rarely do you actually have to swap target, because you just do so much damage. If you are actually in range, that you can probably kill them still. While if you're playing something more like Tracer, for example, then you're going to have to reassess very quickly if someone's plugged healing into the target that you're attacking. But you can reassess and swap very easily and quickly, so that's sort of just part of your kit. It's an experience thing, and it's a game sense thing. It takes a while to build up, but if you are finding like, well, every time I go in, the Mercy just heals the target and I can't kill it, then okay, then that's a signal that you should be changing to do something else. And putting pressure on the Mercy maybe, or just putting pressure elsewhere. Do you have any tips on breaking cheese comps? So usually resort to either Reaper or Tracer to try and flank and burst things down, but they have very inconsistent results of making a dent. Ultimate combos. Just like find a big ultimate combo, throw a shitload of ults at it. It doesn't matter if you spend like 5 ultimates clearing it. Because the thing with cheese is this, it works once and then it's usually very hard to set it up again. So if you throw a shitload of ultimates into clearing this, they're going to have to probably swap anyway. And like the ultimates that cheese heroes generally have, or like cheesy heroes generally have, like Bastion, Torpio, and Symmetra, aren't that powerful. They aren't the strongest ultimates in the world. They are generally very... like, tank form is okay, it's not great, yeah. Shield generator, like, you should be killing that anyway, so she's probably not going to have it, like, just pulse bomb it or something. Once you've wiped them out anyway, it's sort of, they have to reposition it, basically. Molten Core, it's good, but it's avoidable, and it's like, so it's like, compared to stuff like Graviton Surge, and even like Dragon Strike, Dragon Blade, Nano Boost, Transcendence, like these are very beefy, powerful ultimates. They're way stronger. And so you should just be able to sort of hammer through them with that. It's just a matter of like, okay guys, just build up all our ults and then just let's smash them. Or just build up our ults, bait theirs out, bait like the Molten Core out, for example, commit something to kill the shield generator and then just wipe them out. And it's just a case of like, beat them once and then you're probably okay. Anubis another, yeah, there we go. Anubis. Is Lucio Aura a full sphere? I think it actually might be a tube. It might be a cylinder. I'm not actually sure on the full dimensions of it. But it is pretty large. The big thing as well, I remember getting very angry at Ryan about this once. The big thing with Lucio is just try and catch people that are retreating with your aura. So, I mean, you can see the green line very easily. You can see very clearly where it is. So it's like if you see someone retreating, if you, like, for example, if there is a Reaper running up this alleyway and he's running away and he's on half hit points, like, I want to move to here if I can do it safely, to catch him as he comes out here and then speed boost him away so he's safe and then throw him a little bit of healing. You know, I want to try and catch people. I remember snapping at Ryan because I was playing Doomfist on Horizon and I was running away from the enemy team because, like, a I took a gamble and it didn't pay off. I sort of came out on the high ground, and Ryan was literally backing away from me. And it's like, dude, I need you to come save me. I need you to come pull me out of there. Like, backing away from me isn't actually helping. I need you to sort of catch me. You know, catch me, Lucio. That's sort of the idea. So again, this is why I think that Lucio is, to me, the definition of support. Like, he is there to facilitate what other people are doing and make that work. What comp works best for Lucio? Dive comp's very, very good for Lucio. Right, like, Lucio fits in a lot of team comps. This is why he's been super powerful for a while. He's only recently fallen out of favor. Only very recently. Basically, Lucio works extremely well when you have any kind of hero that is close range as well. Stuff like Roadhog, like heroes that are very positional based, like Reaper, Roadhog, May. Where are you, May? There you are. Work extremely well. It's stuff that doesn't really need to move much. Lucio, it doesn't work so well with. So like Bastion Lucio is like a bit of an antithesis, because the Lucio wants to move and have high mobility. Bastion wants to just stay put, so you're better off just using like the stay put healers like Ana and Mercy. Would work a lot better. Let's see, like Reinhardt Lucio works extremely well, but also just aggressive dive comps with Winston. So Winston jumps in, you can push you can sort of drag the team with you with speed boost. Because he's so flexible, because speed boost is so useful to so many heroes, it's why Lucio fits in so many team comps. Any advice in killing the slippery as fuck Lucios that dance on the payload for ages and don't die to 5 people focusing them? Understand that Lucio tends to go forwards. Sounds like a weird statement, but let's say I'm Lucio. Let me find something to jump around. Jump around. Like, okay, I'm jumping around this bus. Like, Lucios tend to just go forwards. Pretty often, they'll just go forwards and they'll sort of bounce up and down. And they'll just keep going forwards. It's very rare that you'll see them change direction too much, and if they do start changing direction, then they'll start dying. Reinhardt, just swing at him. Like, if Reinhardt swings at him as well, what tends to happen is he just gets launched off it, because he just gets battered away. Works very, very well. Otherwise, like, just take a couple of steps back as well. Like, the worst thing you can do is, like, you are stood here and Lucio's here and he's just, like, jumping all over you. Because it's like fighting a Genji who's on top of you. It's much easier if you just stand back here and you go, oh, well, the Lucio's just bouncing around. I just take my time, land a couple of shots. That's much easier. If you are the Lucio bouncing around, just try and be a little bit unpredictable. Like, occasionally changing direction isn't too bad of an idea. Going over people is a very good way of evading. And understand that you are going to die eventually. You're just buying time. But yeah, Lucios tend to go forward. It's like Genji. Genji's going to, like, the advice I always give to people fighting Genjis is Genji is 99.9% of Genjis are going to do the same thing. Okay? They are going to double jump and they're going to try and go over you. Most Genjis have the same fucking pattern. It's very predictable. If I play Widowmaker these days, as I often do in FFA, I can go about 50-50 at close range with Genjis because I know their movements. I know how they're going to move. I know what they're going to do, so I know how to place my Venom Mine, and I know how to get 125 damage on him. And we'll probably kill each other, but hey, he sort of overextended to try and kill me, so whatever, I punished him for it. Like, Genjis are predictable. They are going to double jump. It's very, like, it's only when you start getting to the really fucking good Genjis where they stop doing it. And they stop just double jumping non-stop, they'll just jump, and then they'll just change their positioning completely. And just reassess how they're doing it, and do more with the shurikens. So, yeah. Most people, predictable. But that's just like playing so many hours. You learn how to spot stuff. Left 4 Dead Spitter. Yeah, exactly. Left 4 Dead Spitter. I really like the Spitter's design. I don't recall if you've ever explained why you don't like debuffs in games. So, this is sort of very core to the design of an Overwatch as well, and this is why, like, EMP is somewhat controversial, and hacking is somewhat controversial. D.Va is heavily controversial. When you're playing the game, it's nice to do stuff. Doing stuff is really cool. Doing stuff is fun. I like doing stuff. Everyone likes doing stuff. Doing stuff is really nice. The issue with debuffs is you don't get to do stuff anymore. And so it's just less fun. And like slowing down and being slowed, it's just not fun. It just feels horrible. It just feels ugh. Like Overwatch already gets enough criticism for being a relatively slow game at times. Like the actual movement of the game, the physical moving from A to B is relatively slow compared to some other shooters. And so adding more ways to slow the game down just isn't as interesting to me as finding ways to speed the game up in interesting ways, or changing the game or shifting the game in various ways. And like having debuffs like, you know, oh, well, you deal 50% damage now. Like, imagine how shit that would feel. Imagine how terrible it would feel if you just started doing 50% damage. And it's why, like, the anti-heal grenade, for example, can feel really shitty for supports at times, because it's like, well, I can't do anything now. So I'm just kind of, whatever. I'll just fucking get a magazine and open it and then read the magazine for a while. It's not fun. It's not interesting. That's sort of why. I would rather have more things to do than take away other people's ability to do things. You think you can coach me? I can coach anything. Rawr. Do barriers block the healing and speed auras? Yes. Yes, they do. I believe. I'm 99.9% certain. The big thing to keep in mind is barriers block sound barrier. So if you're in a Winston bubble, break the bubble. But sound barrier isn't quite what you would expect when using sound barrier. Okay, I don't have it charged at the moment. It's going to take forever to charge it if I try to. Sound barrier doesn't work how you would expect it. It's not instantaneous. You have like a second where it's like, it's checking, can I put sound barrier out? Can I put sound barrier on this person? Can I put sound barrier on this person? It has a delay to it. So if like you sound barrier and then a split second, like half a second later, the barrier breaks, the sound barrier will still go through and buff people. So there's a bit of leniency there. This kind of very mechanics stuff, but just be very careful when you're sound barriering around Winstons and when you are engaging. Like if your team all runs past a Reinhardt and you sound barrier and the Reinhardt keeps his barrier up, your team doesn't get it. So be careful with stuff like that. I believe with auras it's true as well that you have to move through it. I'm sure the chat will be able to confirm. I'm sure you can look it up to double check it. I'm 99% sure that auras and especially amp does not go through a barrier. So just try and stick with your team as best as possible and don't get separated. Just general good housekeeping as well. Ooh. One or two more questions. What flavor of ice cream is Jazz Lucio? Actually, the last question anyway, so hey. Oh, favorite Lucio skin? Probably the Jazz Lucio. I do actually really like his epic skins though. The white epic skin, pretty good. I'm not sure what flavor he is. What flavor cheese is Lucio? Actually, someone asked earlier, what's my favorite cheese? I'm a big fan of like a smoothie cheese. I'm a big fan of cheddar. I like a good cheddar. It's very, very good on like a toasted cheese sandwich. It's beautiful on a toasted cheese sandwich. Also a big fan of Edam. I used to have a friend at school that we called Cheese because he was from South Africa. A complete diversion. But his nickname was Cheese because he's from South Africa, and his name was Adam. But in South Africa, they have an accent that's a little bit similar to Australian, and so he basically said, "Hello, my name's Adam. You know, what's your name? Adam." And so we thought he was saying Edam. It's like Edam, what, like the cheese. And so Cheese just stuck somehow, and he was known as Cheese. So there you go. Red Leicester? Yeah, my brother gets Red Leicester. I'm not a big fan of Red Leicester. I prefer like pure cheddar, or like a cheddar and mozzarella mix. Ooh. I think Red Leicester is just a little bit too strong. But I love Baby Bells, for example. If you don't know about Baby Bells as well, they're like these little tiny little Edam wheels. Anyway, right, thank you for watching to the end. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of this waffle. We've been talking about Lucio. I like talking about Lucio. He's a fun hero. He's in a good place at the moment. Like, he's no longer mandatory, and that's rocking the boat slightly. Hey, the Bobster Man.
Hi.
Good timing. Hello. Hi, the Bobster Man. Hi. Hi. Anyway. Yeah, thank you for watching to the end. If you do want to submit to coaching, I was also called Dave in school. Her name is Philip. Dave. I am Dave, !Yognor, and I have the balls. And that's a fucking old reference now. Right, if you want to send footage into OAM Reviews, you can, absolutely can. Send it into oamreviews@gmail.com. Include the hero name and the rank in the title. Include a link to a YouTube video and a little description about, you know, what you experienced during those games that made you submit it, that kind of stuff. Other than that, subs have slightly higher priority. I think we did 2 non-subs this week. We did Rip Van Winkle, who is been a sort of a long-time viewer anyway, so I'm more than happy to do it. And yeah, and the other guy who did as well, I don't think was a sub either, but was also a relatively long-time viewer, if I remember right. Has been around for a while at the very least. So keep sending footage in anyway. And yeah, that's it for now. Thank you for watching to the end. I've been just one voice amongst many. Toodle. Boom. YouTube's gone.